Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you may be seeing or watching this in. I'm Cedric Dunmore, and I'm fortunate today to be in the studio with my brother, Elliot. He and I have been trying to put this together for a period of time now, and so all of the stars have lined up for us to be able to do this today, and I want to thank him for driving down from San Antonio this morning in order to be here for this. And our hope is that we will be able to inspire, encourage, give hope to other men who find themselves in search of the man who lives inside of them, but also men who are willing to be vulnerable with one another in conversation about life's challenges. Not just the challenges, but talk about some of the tools and strategies that they've used, learned, encountered in order to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. We are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Hey,
We don't have all of the answers, but we are in search of, and we're willing to put ourselves out there to be vulnerable, to share with you some of our imperfections in hopes that as we strive to help our boys become better men, but also to help some of our um, fellow men um, strengthen what's in your toolbox for life.
hey, well said. Well, I'm appreciative for the invite. Like you said, this has definitely been a long time coming, and I'm probably just as excited as you are for us to finally be here. But even more so to put it out there for others to witness and talk, and hopefully create dialogue, like you stated, amongst others. To whatever tension may be happening amongst family and friends, this will hopefully they could point to something or extract something from what we talk about today, because we have such a vast history between us, but we have a lot of subject matter to talk about, a lot of things to go over. So I always give the warning that out of the two, I am the most emotional, and I'm okay with saying that. So there may be some tears here today. Just know that these are from past pains and things that I'm, still even working through right now as we speak. But again, I'm so excited to be here, and let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these topics. Man, you want to go ahead and run off some of the things we're talking about today?
Well, I think one of the things that is important for us to share is that, both of us are fathers. We're both um, men who have served our country. I served in the Air Force. Elliot served in the Army.
Huh?
Um, we are both men who have experienced the loss of a child.
Yes,
It happens to both be sons that we both lost. Um,
and young sons, very
and
young.
young, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes, babies.
babies. Yeah.
And so when you start to talk about losses like that, I'm been divorced twice. Uh, I have, by the grace of God, I'm 29 years sober,
Come on.
and I haven't always been where I am today. So I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. And one of the things that I think that spurred this is my brother and I were having a conversation one day, and we were having a conversation after a period of not not speaking with each other for a period of time.
And we'll talk about that too.
Yes, and we started to look at the things that we knew about one another and the things that we didn't. And I'm 12 years older than Elliot. Um, but I came to realize that there are a lot of things that I didn't know about Elliot and that he didn't know about me. And so I wondered um, how many other siblings you share blood, but you don't really know one another. And so I started to do some, I've been in therapy. I have a therapist. I am a counselor. But I started doing some work probably maybe 7, 8 years ago, um, trying to figure out who I really was. And so for me, one of the things I had to come to grips with was that some of the things that I had been told and taught about mental health, mental illness, um, they just weren't true. They were told from a perspective of black people don't go to therapy, they go to church.
Right.
And our dad was a minister. He's deceased now, but the thing was, we go to church, we don't go to therapy. And that's one of the biggest fallacies that I've ever lived my life in. But it also gave me a perspective to just kind of look at some other things that I've held on for a long time in my life, as a man, belief systems, thought processes. And as I began to do my own work, I had to challenge some of those things. And some of those things were taught to me by people that I had great respect for, I placed in very high esteem. And it's not that in doing the work, that I lessen my esteem for them, but I came to understand that sometimes we all do the best that we can with what we know. And until we start to experience some things on our own from our own perspective, um, then we can kind of reevaluate the importance of some things. And I know that right now, mental health is in the forefront of a lot of people's platforms. Um,
It seems that it's the new, necessarily the new thing, but now everyone is kind of gravitating more to want to understand mental health and that being a part of the health, being more health conscious is not just your body, but that the mental component as well is what everyone's kind of on top of. Let me ask you this question. I guess to really kind of get right into it because you touched on it, but my first question to you would be: when your son passed away, what happened? Where were you? What did it feel like? Who was there for you? What you know? And you can even the components of not necessarily just a black man, but just as a man losing a son.
wow, that's mm.
Because mine was a little bit different. But tell me what was where were you? What were you going through? What were your thoughts?
So my brother is now trying to uh, he's trying to make me the darn crybaby.
Come
That's
on,
what he's trying to do.
let's go right. Let's get right into it,
But but
doctor.
but it's okay. It's okay. My son was born with a condition called encephalopathy, which is water on his brain.
Mm.
And so um, it's kind of crazy because the day that he was born, I mean, everything seemed right in the hours of his initial birth. And we were in California. He was born at Mather Air Force Base, and by the time I drove from Mather Air Force Base to back home in Sacramento, which is probably the equivalent of about 30-minute drive, they called me from the hospital and said, "You need to get back here right away."
Okay, pause. I did not know that, but what you just told me is amazing. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and so I go back, and I go back, and I'm freaking out because I have my daughter at home, Aisha. One of my daughters, Aisha. I have two daughters, Kiana and Aisha, but Aisha was at home, and so I'm like, okay, um, my ex-wife is at the hospital. She's just giving birth. I get back home with Isha, and I gotta run back up to the hospital. And I get back there, and they're telling me, there's complications. I don't know what that means in terms of, that they hit me with the encephalopathy, and I'm like, dude, that's way, 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 way outside of my vocabulary. I have no idea what that means. And so when they explained it to me, I'm like, how is that possible? So to answer your question of where I was in the Air Force. Um, I was um, fighting still at that time to be in some form of recovery because I initially went to treatment in 1984. And I'm kind of going back
Right.
and forth, but I'm trying to give you some um,
Timeline.
timelines,
Right. Right.
some context for the question. But so now I'm struggling because um, I have a daughter, Kiana, from my first marriage. She was born healthy. Her mom and I divorced. I remarried my ex-wife, Natalie. She had a daughter, Aisha, and then we had CJ. And so both the girls were thriving, born healthy, everything's good. And now we have CJ. I always wanted a son. God
Mm.
blessed me to have a son, and now he's sick. So there's a lot of things going through my mind at that moment because I'm going, wow, what's really going on here? And so he spent uh, 7 months on this earth. Probably five and a half of those months, he was in the hospital in the NICU at David Grant Medical Center at Travis Air Force Base. And so watching him being strapped down, watching him being given injections and spinal taps,
Mm.
and they gave him something in one of his arms that was so strong, it like burnt his arm. So right at around his inner wrist, there's he had a significant burn mark, right? And so my life became, I'm still on active duty. Nally was on active duty, but she was on what they call maternity leave. And so every day, um, I would go to, get Isha up, get her ready for school, take her to school, go to, for 30 days, I was on leave too. So I go drive down to David Grant to be with Natalie and CJ in the NICU.
Mm.
And so when that period of time was over for me, she was extended on maternity leave, but I had to go back to work. So my life became get Isha ready for school, take her to school. I go to work, um, get and it never failed. Every day I went to work, people would say, "How's the baby? How's Natalie?" But nobody
Ask how you were.
ask how I was doing. And some people can say, well, geez, stop crying. That she had the baby. Why are you so upset because nobody asked you how you were doing? But it goes back to the whole. It goes back to how we as men are conditioned that we are not to feel,
Mm-hmm.
we are not to emit emotion, we are not to um, show weaknesses, and being as somebody asking a man, well, how do you feel? That somehow is equated to him being weak, and so my my coping strategy was to just suck it up, right? Because I'm the man. I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to be the pillar of the family. I'm supposed to keep everybody else strong, and so I found when my son came home for the last time before he died was
Mm.
Halloween, and he was on a monitor in his room, and if you looked at him, you didn't know that he was sick.
Wow.
Beautiful baby boy. But I knew. I mean, his range of motion with his eyes were fixed, and it was a lot. So anyway, the morning that he passed at home. I found him in the bed, deceased, and it was it was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced in my life because it was my son was dead and I found him. And again, I had to come back in the room and tell his mom, "Hey, we got to call 911. He's not breathing." I knew he was deceased because I was looking at him, and his lips were purple and
Mm.
the whole nine, right?
Wow.
So again, it was flip the switch into be a man mode.
Right. Make sure they're okay.
Yes,
Right. Right.
and so I did that, but you know, I was not in a good space. I was not well emotionally, but I just was doing what I thought was the next right thing, what I had been trained and told by my dad and men in my life that, this is what a man does. He provides, he makes sure that everybody else is okay.
Did you ever go to grief counseling? Did you ever talk to anyone about it?
Um, so there was a social worker that I used to work with. Um, his name was Daniel Green, what you call him, Mr. Freeman. I'm sorry, Daniel Freeman. I used to call him Mr. Groovy, my godfather. We had a. I used to talk to him, and I think he did one or two times with me and Natalie, but in terms really formally processing it, never. I was probably when I started doing counseling in the VA after I had already retired was the first time I really um, did any counseling. Um, and so um, the whole, I did counseling in the Air Force as a counselor, as a substance use counselor. But
But one
my
on one,
own
right?
stuff, no,
You
no,
actually
no,
sitting
no,
talking with someone about
no,
him
no,
passing.
no, no, no. That wasn't in the realm of what I thought that a man did, a father did, and certainly not a black man going to counseling.
Mm.
And again, I say that because my whole life I have lived life as a black man, so that's how I know life as a black man. And so when I say that, it's not about garnering any kind of sympathy or pigeonholing me into anything, but I don't care what anybody says. It's different. A black man grows up and does life differently than a white man does, and it's just that's been
It's
my experience.
it's based off of survival. I've always been taught that it's based off of being able to stay alive. You have to move this way to survive. So,
Yeah.
um, wow. I'll give a quick, and I've said,
Because I know you had the experience too. Was
well,
yours similar?
oh, it not only similar, but I'll give you the short piece so I don't shed any tears. I've learned, I found a way to do it now where it's really quick. But I just, I just talked about Sean for the first time face to face with a counselor in 2023.
Mm.
He died in 2020, in 2000.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, I think he passed away in 2000. He was born in 99, so I think he passed in 2000. Anyway, uh, when I paused that when you were speaking, it's again the similarity. Even now, listen to your story. Um, I was in the field when Sean got sick. My then fiance was taking him to the hospital, like I guess just like a normal checkup or whatever,
Mm.
and he died from SIDS. But on the way to the hospital, I think he was 2.5 months,
Mm.
and on the way to the hospital, he stopped breathing as she was driving him to the hospital,
Wow.
and I was in the field. I was about 30 minutes away
Mm.
from where she was. I mean, from the field duty I was to where she was. She pulled over to the side of the road, and according, I think she went to the back seat and tried to revive him. She was in front of McDonald's
Mm.
specifically, and there were some soldiers who came out. I remember the gentleman because he came to the funeral,
Mm.
and he tried to revive Sean on his own. He couldn't, and I didn't know any of this until I got to the hospital, of course. But tried to revive him. They rushed to the hospital. I get a call while I was out in the field saying, "Hey, come to the hospital." Uh, when I got there, similar to you, I walked past her mother, Gina's mother,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in tears. And it didn't even dawn on me that he had passed. I didn't think
Mm.
anything of it. I just knew they just told me to get to the hospital right away. And I'm like, "Where's Gina? Where's Sean?" And she's just shaking her head, her mother. So I finally get back to the room where Gina is, and she's almost on the floor. It's like she can hardly
Mm.
breathe. I'm like, what was like? And it still never dawned on me. And I grab her, and she's just like, he's gone.
Mm.
And I was like, what do you mean he's gone? Like he's
Mm.
gone? I'm like, what? And it didn't dawn on me. Like, and once it finally hit me, like when I kind of looked at him in the bed, or the little, whatever they had him in, and that he was actually like gone. I kind of just blacked out. I was upset with God, upset with the military. I was enraged uh, that, and there's some other things behind it that I shouldn't have been in the field that day anyway. I should have been taking him. There's some other things that I was so upset with the military that they didn't allow me to, take him to his appointments because we weren't married and, all these different things. So,
Mm.
but yeah, it was a very, very traumatic. And I got out of the military 6 months after that. Now,
Mm.
anyone that knew me or knows me even now, I was, very energetic. I'm always laughing, having a good time, and joking. But right after he passed, I can feel the darkness. I can feel and I used to work upstairs, doing just like doing computer work, and they moved me down to the motor pool.
Mm.
And I remember some of the guys coming over saying, Paul, man, you got to get out of here, man. Like you, I remember like standing behind the truck, just kind of looking up at the sky and just look. I just wasn't myself, and
Yeah.
they was like, you should probably get out because this is not you anymore.
Yeah.
So shortly after he passed, I got out maybe 3, 4, 5 months after he passed. They helped me kind of train, honorable discharge. But they helped me go ahead and get out the service. But um, I never talked about Sean. I never mentioned, people knew he passed away, so I just kind of got out. I just told people, hey, I was tired of the military. That was my answer to everyone. Why'd you get out? Why didn't you stay in?
Mm-hmm.
But the answer was like I didn't feel anymore. I didn't
Mm.
know, had one older son, Aaron, at the time. Um, but yeah, I couldn't really function mentally. And my first time talking about him was last year with the counselor, a VA counselor, this young lady, and we broke down and cried together. So that's why I knew
Mm.
she was sent. She's seen people, for years. She's been doing this for decades, and we sat and we talked. And she closed her door and she put her hand on my shoulder, and she started crying. I started crying,
Mm.
man. And she helped me kind of get everything out regarding him. So anyway,
Wow.
yeah.
You know, it's funny, not ha ha funny. It's ironically funny that as I listen to you and you say, people who knew me, I was energetic, I was fun, I was what have you. But as I listen to you talk about the losing your son,
Right.
my nephew, um, it's like it's almost like you're still detached. You're telling a story about the loss of your son,
Right.
but it's almost like you're telling the story of
Someone else's.
someone else's,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so I can relate to that, but also, and for those of you who are, uh, you know, maybe connecting the dots. Elliot and I didn't grow up together. We have the same father, but the thing that is so bizarre is that when my dad called me to tell me, he said, "Cedric, I need you to do something." And I
Mm.
was like, "What?" And he said, "I need you to call your brother because his son passed and I don't have any experience with that. I've never lost a son. And so, can you call him and talk to him because you all have that similarity?" Now, again, there's a 12-year difference. There's a whole story that we'll get into probably at some other point. But the thing that stood out to that for me is I knew who Elliot was. I knew that he was my brother. but I didn't grow up with him, right? And so when my dad called me and said, "Hey, can you call your brother?" And I didn't even have his number. Daddy gave me his number. And so it's like, how do you make that call?
Can we give God 30 seconds of praise? Let's make some noise and let God know we are in the house. Let's praise Him and get loud. Clap your hands and rock the crowd. Put them up and dance around. Praise God, I sing and shout. Praise God, I sing and shout. Let's party, let's go. Let's scream and shout to let her know, yeah, yeah. Scream and shout to let her know.